Dallas Hazelton is our next presenter. He's from Natural Areas Management, and he will be talking mostly about the restoration project, along with some ongoing monitoring and special projects that NAM is a part of. I believe I made you a co-host, Dallas, if you would like to share your screen and unmute yourself.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Jennifer and Vanessa, for inviting me to this presentation. I'm Dallas Hazelton. I work for the Miami-Dade Parks Department Natural Areas Management Section, and sort of indirectly for the Environmentally Endangered Lands Program. Like Vanessa just said, I'm going to do a run through the kind of the history of how the rehydration project got to be here. But before I do that, I'm going to just do a little bit on what Natural Areas Management does, and I'm going to share my screen. And is everybody seeing that?
Yes.
Oh, why is it doing that? Okay. So NAM is sort of the contractor for the eel program. We do other stuff, but most of what we do is for the Environmentally Endangered Lands Program, and we manage the preserves that the Environmentally Endangered Lands Program either owns or manages. I am a preserve manager for Natural Areas Management and therefore the eel program. And I manage the eel managed portion of Deering, of R. Hardy Matheson, Ludlam Pinelands, and Bill Sadowski Park. The main goal of Natural Areas Management is to control invasive plants. We have 6 crews, and that's what they do year round, is they go around all these different sites all over Dade County and treat invasive plants. We also do a little bit of invasive animals, but that's a much more difficult thing to tackle. And so for right now, we focus mainly on plants. We also do prescribed fire in our county Pine Rocklands. We do restoration projects like the Deering Rehydration Project and others. We do monitoring and research a little bit on our own and also with other agencies. And NAM manages the research permit process for all county natural areas. And with that, I will go on to the history. And I'm going to move away to where I can see a better screen. And I hope you all can still hear me. Vanessa, just nod if you can still hear me. Okay. So I am, I started with the county in 1986. And I only say that to explain that I've been so lucky that I got to see this project right from the very start all the way to now and participate in it. This is a presentation I put together for public. So it goes through the kind of the basic stuff. There's Florida and Okeechobee at the top, and why isn't it going forward? There's the Deering Estate. What I always point out here is the Rock Ridge, and you can see all those little finger channels of wetland that came through, and there's one right there where the Deering Estate is. And we all know that water flows or used to flow down from Lake Okeechobee and a sheet flow all through the Everglades, and that's how it ended up coming to Deering. There's Deering in the 1938 Ariel, and I hope you can see my mouse. Over here is the freshwater wetland that at the time of this photo, you can see it was being farmed. And then there's a what is Cutler Creek, and the shallow basin of the wetland all the way over here where it flowed into Deering. And then it's kind of hard to see, but you can kind of make out two fingers where it splits, and then sheet flowed and flowed through the rock. The rock ridge kind of went underground at this point and popped up over here in mangroves and just kind of oozes out from the rock like a sponge all along there, and it does again. So yeah, there's what I just described. There's why the water used to flow. In 1899, if my memory is right, that's when the townspeople of Cutler dug out Cutler Creek. It was kind of one of the first attempts to make a canal to drain wetlands to try to increase the amount of time that they could do the farming in the wetlands over there, increase the dry period. There was so much water back then, I kind of wonder if it really had any effect at all. So there's the Deering Estate after 100 years of development. The white outline is the historic wetland, and the blue line is Cutler Creek. That guy is Rob Line. He was the first park manager of the Deering Estate. Deering was bought in 1984 or 85, and it opened to the public in 1986, right when I started. Not too many people really knew about it back then, and it was a new park for all of the staff. And with a lot of the downtime when there weren't people in the park, we would just go explore and see what we could find. And one day, Rob and I were walking over in what we call Deering West now, the area west of 72nd Avenue. And we were somewhere around in this area. And Rob reached down and picked up a clod of dirt. He's mushing it around in his hand. Dallas, this is wetland soil. This used to be a wetland. And I looked around, and it was just a thicket of Brazilian pepper and other invasives, and looked at him like he was crazy. And then a few years after that, he got a hold of an Ariel, and we were looking at that and talking about it in the office. And he noticed this property here and this dead-end canal that comes right to the end of that property, and thought, man, it would be really cool if we could get that property, which was still privately owned, and reconnect it to Deering and get water flowing in here again. And that's really where the spark of this whole idea of the rehydration project came from. Rob left Florida and became a natural resource manager for Delaware in 1995. So he never really got to see all this, other than he did come back here, I know, a few years ago and saw it. But nothing could really happen until the Powers property was acquired. And that was purchased in 1999, I believe. I think I have it in another slide. And that gave us access to that dead-end canal. And another little side story I got to tell. The Powers family, well, first of all, this outflow over here originally was going to be right here and cut right through Deering. It would have cut Deering right in half. And when the Powers couple first found out about this, they thought, oh man, this will be great. We'll have boat access. We'll really like this. And then they found out later that they wouldn't be able to have boat access. And they decided they didn't like it. And somehow they got it stopped. So that's why there's this dead-end canal that comes to the corner of their property and stop. And they had to change the whole project and put the outflow down here. So that did two things for Deering. That left us with this spur canal that we could use. And it also saved Deering from getting cut in half by a giant canal. So there's the Powers property when it was purchased in 1999. It was $1.4 million. It was funded by Florida Communities Trust, a Parks Bond program, the EEL program. That EEL is, I'll probably say EEL a few times in this, and that's the Environmentally Endangered Lands program. And also the Wetlands Trust Fund, which is a Durham grant. Okay, so there's how the canal system works for flood control. The gate down here opens, and the water, at least this is the way it used to work before the rehydration part, flow by here, flow in from the west, and go out the gate, floodgate here. When that gate opens, it's very detrimental to the marine organisms in the bay. That big slug of fresh water suddenly coming out is very hard on them. So it's not really a good thing. This is the way the rehydration project works. It takes some of that water, roughly about half, and pumps it over into the coastal wetlands over here where it sheet flows out into the bay, closer to what it more historically did. And that's really what the whole Biscayne Bay restoration project is, doing the same type of thing on a much larger scale throughout Biscayne Bay. The first thing we had to do for this project was plug Cutler Creek, that ditch that was dug out by the townspeople of Cutler in 1899. Because if we didn't, and we started pumping water in here, it would move from this point source to this point source. That wouldn't really help. So that was right in the heart of the natural area. This was done very carefully and all pretty much by hand. There they are forming the concrete. It's basically just a wall that holds the water back, a little tiny dam. I'm sure if you've been on a tour of the Deering Estate, you've seen it when you stand on the bridge. So that was a SAMP grant and a U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant. The grant was $263,000. We went over that. It was a little over $300,000 to complete that for a little 5-foot wall. The next part was the pump station over on the Powers property. Okay, so they dug through Old Cutler Road and put a 5-foot diameter pipe. You can see some of the pipes in the background there, under Old Cutler Road and over to where the pump station is, right in the middle of the property. When you look at that pump station, you're really kind of only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Here, they dug down something like 30 feet, and then there's this massive concrete foundation below ground that you don't even see, and that's so that's really the only part you see right there. So there's a whole lot of that underground. Also, while they were building the pump station, they created the wetland on the Powers property. I forgot to point out on the historic aerial, the northern half of the Powers property is upland, and it's at a much higher elevation than the southern half. And the southern half was part of the historic wetland. But because of flood control, we have to keep the water levels low in this, lower than it was historically, because otherwise we'd flood out to the homes right next to us. So we couldn't bring water up on Powers, so we had to lower the ground down to the elevation where Powers would flood naturally from the existing canal elevation. And there it is after it was planted, and pump station getting close to completion. There's the pumps, big, huge electric pumps, 225 CFS pumps, and the big one on the ground there is the 50 CFS pump. They call that, a lot of the district guys call that the Taj Mahal because it's the prettiest pump station they've ever built. And they did that to make it look nice for Deering in the neighborhood. And there's how it looked after it was completed. There's the created wetland. They extended the canal. The dead end canal came right to this corner. So they extended the canal over here and built a pump station. The pipe goes the 5-foot diameter pipe is underground, and it goes over here to that little square, then over here to the corner where it jumps across the street and flows out into Gearing. So that was a $4.2 million project constructed by the Water Management District and funded by CERP, the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program. It was completed in 2012. And I think it really started operation of the pumps in like late 2012, 2013. And the next part was the additional half-acre, roughly, wetland on the west side of the property. Vanessa, do we have time to run a 5-minute video that shows the construction?
Yes, you definitely do.
Okay. So this is a time-lapse video that we put together that shows the construction of the Wetland West, not of the pump station. This was after that.
Dallas, we're not seeing anything. We're just
You're not
seeing,
seeing anything.
it says video and with YouTube. You might have to share a different screen if it pops something open.
Oh, tell you what, we'll skip the video. There's the link if you want to go watch that at your leisure. So there's the additional half-acre wetland. This is pretty much the way the site looks now, except all the vegetation has grown in really nicely, and there's a lot more lilies out here. Just some of the stuff that was planted. So that was another about $269,000 grant that we got. Plus, again, we went a little bit over, and it was somewhere around $300,000. And that pretty much brings us to where we are today. Here, the state uses it for educational programming. And this is kind of a conceptual design that was done, and it shows us the way it turned out. And in fact, the upland half has recently been planted with hammock and pineland species. So that's well on its way to becoming a created natural area, upland natural area of its own. Any questions?
Thank you, Dallas. If anyone has any questions, just please unmute yourself. We have.
Can I add something? Hello. This has it seems to me so much educational value. And this is the first time I have fully had it explained so that I could follow it, in all honesty. How much public educational opportunity are we offering at the station? Is that ever open on a regular basis, or could it be, or?
I will let Vanessa or Jennifer answer that one.
I think that's a Jennifer question. Is she there?
She's unmuting.
Okay.
There you go. So Jennifer, question on this. So Becky, we've been regularly doing some both VIP experiences and tours, as well as some educational tours, and both led by Dallas Brom, who is the engineer from the South Florida Water Management District. I would say pretty much before and through this, through this process, we also have, for those of you out there, a curriculum that supports the educational components of this that we do in our K through 12 programs. Chris Bumpus, who is our learning programs and conservation manager, has taken many of our groups out there. I'm unsure what the number on an annual basis is, but it sounds like, Becky, we got to get you out there.
I know, I can't believe
one of those tours.
But I guess because seeing it on an overview with the aerial shots just makes it very clear, which though I've read a lot about it, I didn't fully grasp it before. So
it's a really good point that you make, Becky, and I think that all of us struggle with that. Is you've got this, when you walk a land, you see one perspective. When you integrate with others on it, you see another perspective. And then, sometimes as nerdy, geeky scientists, when we look at the LiDAR data or the aerial view, it has a completely different perspective. And when you pull all of those together, it really gives this very deep and broad look at, at the site. So absolutely. I think as those trails develop more and as the plantings develop more and as the Deering Estate, both cultural and ecological field station and our K through 12 programs grow, we'll just continue to do more. And
I think too, you were saying that the bay along the Deering coastline is improving in water quality. And I think that's a really important issue to be documenting and incorporating in this, whether it's not only in the tour, but displays or something so that the average public would appreciate the investment of money and what it's getting, other than from the road. It doesn't look like, as exciting as it is. So
yeah, I agree with that. Some of our park and natural areas that your first impressions are chain link fences are not the impression that we want for science conservation, and definitely not for engagement in conservation. Brahm's going to talk later this afternoon, I think. Yeah, Vanessa's telling me, about some of the benefits and outcomes of the slough rehydration project, both to our habitats as well as to water quality in the region. So it's all good. I think it was a great question, Becky. And I would say that you were a shill because it gave us a chance to talk about a little bit more of the good work that we did. So awesome, yay, good team.
It was good, thank you.
Part of that planting that was done at the Powers property, there were trails created throughout that upland habitat. So I think the long-term goal is to open up that to the public. I'm not sure when that would happen, but I believe that was the intent.
Good. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dallas, Becky, Jennifer. We're going to move on